Let's do a proposal review and then we'll get into it. We have a lot to discuss. So, Agate 50, that was Create Aavegotchi DAO Foundation. That passed successfully, and I have the top 9 signers that were voted in here. So post that in the chat. It should be streaming now. Yeah, it should be streaming now. I have it running, so let me know if you don't see it up now. Yeah, it's up now. Okay, awesome. So we have. Let me post this. Sorry about the text, but these are the 9 signers that got the highest votes. We got Yannick, Notorious BTC, No Futuristic, Mori, Mike Callum, Maxi Crouton, Kakusho, PG, and Umami. These are our 9 DAO Foundation signers. Okay, Yannick might be stepping out, so we'll get the next person in line. Yeah. Didn't think he'd be so popular, huh? Okay, so I think the next one down looks like Choina. So it'll be Choina in there. Yeah, that's right, No Future. You need a special pen for this position. Absolutely. This is historic. Um, this is awesome. I think we're taking a big step here. So, election for DAO Foundation's. Sorry, I'm moving on to Agate 51. Election for DAO Foundation's directors, multi-sig signers. Sorry, that last one was the Aavegotchi DAO Foundation passing. This one over here we just discussed. So Agate 51 was for the votes. That's what we just discussed. SIG prop for creating the ATF. That one has passed with 16 million ghost meeting quorum over 9 million. And so I think the next step here is a core prop. I don't think there really needs to be any large changes made to the SIG prop. But if there are any changes that need to be made, we can make those changes. I think what they're asking for basically is a 100k ghost, which was allocated initially to the DTF, but I think the DTF is passing the torch rightfully to the ATF now that they've formed multi-sig. I'm one of the signers there as well, and that 100k is going to be used with a fixed drawdown of, I think, between 100 and 500 ghosts depending on the activity type for prizes. So it'll be a prize pool, and it'll be drawn down in small amounts, but these small prizes hopefully will be enough to incentivize people to really stress test these games, and also incentivize engagement with the new Aavegotchi games coming out. So I think it's going to be exciting. They also have 87 fake gachi cards. I think they're one of the larger fake gachi card holders. And so if you think about it, that's 8,700 prizes that can be minted from that. So that's a lot of prizes there as well. So depending on we can have tiered prizes for leaderboard competitions and whatnot. And I think they are working on many of those games that they have coming out for Aavegotchi, the arcade, are going to be running their own server-side leaderboards. So hopefully a little bit more cheat-proof than the client-side leaderboards we had before. So yeah, looking forward to seeing the arcade games making a comeback. Coder Debt, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good point. That's something we can discuss with the ETF, and make sure all 9 members or all signers are going to be doxxed before that, before the money gets transferred over. 7. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to them and confirm that. I see hardcore is posted in the chat. Are you? Yeah, I'm not really sure what you're trying to get at there. Um, I'm gonna move on. Agate 50. Oh, you're talking about this Agate 52 Rarity Farming Season 5. That one, the end date for that is December 4th, but it has 19 million over 9 million quorum. It's met quorum, so this will likely pass. And regarding Rarity Farming Season 5, uh, I think we said we would wait for the Forge to officially launch before we went out with that, because we're kind of looking at this as a valuable, um, I can't remember who said it last time, but a valuable marketing opportunity, which I think is a good point. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's probably on point with their roadmap. Mm-hmm. Could be. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, right on. And so that's Agate 52. Agate 53, Channel Alchemica by Burning Kinship. This one passed pretty close. Not, 58% were for it and 41% were against it. So 13 million over 9 million quorum was met. And you can still go vote on that one if you want your XP. This is Agate 53, Channel Alchemica by Burning Kinship. Oh, did it lose? Okay, sorry. This is what's on the board. Um, okay, my bad. Let me go look at the actual. Okay, so that one flipped. Okay, that was interesting. An interesting turn of events. That's a lot of ghosts that voted on that. 19 million. Okay. So yeah, this is not getting implemented, I guess. But there are some follow up comments. I think that hardcore put them on the board there so we can discuss. So that wraps up our snapshot review. Let's head over to the. Well, let's see here. Do we have. What's his name? I don't see him in here. Is it Groomer? There was someone who was going to present today. Let's see. I don't see him. Yeah, okay, I'm going to move on. So we. Make it 53. Sorry, I'm trying to understand that. Hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Use weighted voting. Uh, yeah. All right. Um, is am I okay, am I good to move on to actually this kind of ties in with the Yannick's rejection proposal rejection. The OG kinship alternative proposal. Someone it's not an official proposal, but more of a discussion, I guess. Um, so we've talked about kinship burn, and there's some alternatives if since this one didn't pass, if we were to resubmit the proposal. It goes here. Kinship has the potential to be one of the most interesting and addictive on-chain game mechanics that our gotchis have available currently. Uh, I would like to resubmit Yannick's proposal, but with less aggressive kinship burn rate options. So option one in this case would be burn -2, burn 2 kinship per channel. Option two would be burn 1 kinship per channel, and then option three, of course, leave as is. And then they kind of explain the meaning behind these. Um, Option one would allow players to maintain their current gotchi kinship level and still channel per normal. Option two would allow players to increase gotchi kinship, but a little bit slower than non-channelers. So those would be the two options there. Um, and then they talk about the infra that would go around, that would go around this mechanic. But essentially, these are the other two options. What do people right now listening in? What do you guys think about this kinship burn proposal in general? Is it something you never want anyway, or were you kind of more opposed to the -4 burn rather than the whole proposal? Because this one's now, I feel like these burn rates are a little bit more, a little more conservative, so a little bit more reasonable. I see chairs saying "do not want." Grids, you're screwed either way. Uh, yeah, and no future. I was thinking about this as well because we already did take a measure to reduce the emissions, right? We did. I can't remember whose proposal it was, but it reduced emissions by 48%, I think. And so I kind of somewhat, to some extent, I actually agree that maybe it might be a little bit too much. Um, that being said, it's an interesting mechanic. It could be interesting, like for the gamification aspect of it. But Maybe if we hadn't implemented the 48% 48% reduction, we could have implemented this instead. Yeah, Hardcore is also saying Kinburn is not specifically about emissions, it's about adding choices and game. Yeah, that's the gamification there. No spillover burn, yeah. We'll get to that discussion as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the consensus here we're getting from this conversation is that many people would have actually been fine with the kinship burn, but had the other proposal not passed, they would have been fine. But because we have a 48% reduction in emissions, I could understand why someone would be a little apprehensive to also be burning kinship for channeling. Maybe too hard of a kind of a nerf, but uh, I guess we would forego the gamification. Like maybe we can implement this later at some point in time when it makes sense, and maybe think about it when we have maybe other ways to earn kinship or something. Maybe to balance it out, we have a way to burn it as well. But maybe for now, this is a something that's put on hold. I guess it sounds like. And then Yannick had also mentioned earlier up in the conversation, you could also do, you could try -4 and change it to -2 quickly if it didn't work out, of course. That's, with any of these changes, we could always revert back to the way things were, but sometimes can be challenging. Yeah. All right. So I guess the consensus here is it might be a little bit too much based on the previous changes that have already been made. But however, still a very interesting idea and something we should keep in mind moving forward. If there are opportunities to implement something like this and the DAO thinks it makes sense, then, we go ahead. It would be interesting to use these live in game too, right? Like if these dropped in the arena and you wanted to get that XP booster. Well, I guess maybe it doesn't really apply to battle directly, but it would be a cool reward to have in the arena.
Original OG aspect of the original potions, which there really aren't very many left. There's probably a handful. But yeah, the idea would be that there would be some rewards that your gachi could get. So it would almost kind of be a booster to petting. Petting is a thing you can do twice a day. This would be something, if you grind it out in the arena, you're playing a lot, you'd have potential to get some potions by doing that.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be a great way to introduce potions back into back into the game, and then that would also spark the conversation about how do we burn the kinship. You know,
Yeah. Because then,
then
yeah, then we
yeah,
then we would have a real reason to start burning kinship because you can actually earn kinship, and then you can burn kinship. Like right now, I mean, you can earn it, but everyone's earning pretty much at the same rate. So maybe there is, because there's not like an additional way to earn it, then maybe people view that a little bit harsher than if we introduced another source for kinship.
well, it's interesting you make a point about battle there because if we're dropping kinship potions in the arena, uh, we're now kind of gamifying kinship in a little way because if you're really good at battle, you're winning lots of them and you're actually earning potions through the process. Inherently your gachis are also going to have higher kinship over time as or you could choose to sell them, but you could also, you could use them and increase your own kinship. We should definitely keep this as an ongoing conversation, despite this proposal not passing for the kinship burn. Regarding channeling, I think the idea of burning kinship could be really interesting as we introduce new kinship rewards into the game.
Yeah, I totally agree with Zico. We shouldn't be limiting our economy because there's 10 OG potions out there.
Yeah. Well, I
Like
mean,
that.
maybe these aesthetically the new potions look a little bit different or something. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah,
Maybe.
they could totally be different types of items, but they would do pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, you'd have like the ancient kinship potion, and then you'd have ancient with two A's, and then you'd have the kinship potion. Okay, so I think that was a good discussion around that. I think we should move on to, if we're all good with it, we should move on to the DTF budget review, request restaffing, and I also have a tally form for those of you who might want to express their interest in this. So quick TLDR from Hardcore here. TLDR, please post here. I will give you or if someone wants to drop the link, actually I'll do it. Never mind. It's all good. This is the link here for the discussion around this. And so please post here if you're interested in one of the 3 open DTF spots. So Swappy, Addison, and Dr. Wagme will be stepping down from the DTF. And the proposed funding for the DTF, I think we're going to be pretty much like we've funded a lot of projects this year since I came on. And I want to say almost 100% of all the projects we funded have delivered on what they said they would deliver on. So, we should be proud as a community to be able to fund projects and to have community members who are, executing on a high level and actually doing it, in a very decentralized way. So, um, this is probably the next step for the DTF is to get some additional funding here. As we're getting quite a few requests now that people are able to engage with the process. So they're suggesting 100K Ghost for the DTF. He is suggesting I think this was from I don't know who it was. I think maybe Dr. Wagme. I suggest the DPM role be considered and funded by the DAO instead of the DTF, and this should include new detailed expectations for the role's standard work. So I think we did go through. I think Coder Dan and we did go through the kind of job dimensions of it, so we can definitely review that. But I think the job dimensions are I don't think they really need to change a whole lot. But if there are things we want to add, or I know there's some other functions that people wanted to the DPM to carry out. Those could be discussed. And so ends off here with, please provide thoughts on what you think the DTF should fund and how the DTF can be better moving forward. So I think this is a conversation about pretty much the DTF, like what we want them to be, and what role they're going to play with the Aavegotchi DAO Foundation now being the primary kind of I guess it's a group of multi-sig signers right now at the foundation, but eventually they're going to have more defined roles. But in the meantime, I guess we have the DTF, which is it's its own committee, and they're funded by the DAO. And from my experience with the DTF, their job is to basically fund community initiatives and provide kind of initial funding for projects. Um, my engagement with the DTF has been pretty good, but I think I have a few, and maybe these criticisms are actually not criticisms, but they're opportunities. I think Dr. Wagme actually lays them out. So, some parting thoughts for the DTF. Strengths, he lists DTF members have been wonderful to work with, generally efficient, and multi-sig confirmations are usually done in a really timely manner. So I think like I said, my engagements with the DTF have been really good. Getting transactions signed. Few times I've wanted feedback, I've got feedback. So that should be that's fine there. And then current funding application process is relatively streamlined with Notion and Parcel. So those are the two dApps that I implemented right away. Basically, we have a whole Notion running with a bounty board and some other resources people might find helpful, as well as a grant funding process. And then we also have Parcel for multi-sig management and accounting. And so that's all managed there through that. And hopefully in this next year, we'll be looking at adopting DAO work tool like dWork, or we were also looking at Wonderverse, but kind of speaking with Jesse, I think kind of leaning towards maybe dWork, but we'll do a final comparison. We'll probably spend a DAO meeting, just segment talking about some comparisons and decide which DAO tool we would want to use most. So those are the strengths currently. Weaknesses, some of the weaknesses, lack of tooling. So I think that's what I just mentioned here. The DTF has not transitioned to dWork or Wonderverse. GMI is currently doing a trial with Wonderverse, and I've been speaking to other guilds who are working with dWork, like Meta Guild, and I think the Gachi Farm uses dWork, but I'm going to try and get their feedback on it, and also give you the inside scoop on GMI's Wonderverse experience here in shortly. Lack of general
Nice.
guide. Yeah. Actually, I really like Wonderverse. In my opinion, personally, I think our DAO functions better with Wonderverse, or in the Wonderverse kind of the way they have their things set up, compared to dWork.
If you guys haven't seen this already, Jesse did a deep dive with them a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, really great. And they also have a snapshot integration, so we can do like pre-voting, like we can do vetting of votes before they even make it to the snapshot, the official snapshot. So they have some really cool tools there, as well as the ability to work in pods. They have Notion integration. What was the other one? They have a Gitcoin grant integration as well. So if we have specific grants or projects that are quite large, and maybe the DAO doesn't want to fund the whole project, we could actually get them registered through Gitcoin grants, through Wonderverse, and have some projects partially funded through Gitcoin as well. So yeah, those are some of the kind of highlight features I saw. But moving on with some of the weaknesses or challenges, lack of general guidance and goals regarding types of projects to fund. So I think this could be more in terms of issued bounties, and what types of bounties would be issued by the DTF. there's really no guidance right now. We take we take grant submissions. So if you have a project that you think would be valuable for the community, you can submit a grant, and I'll review it alongside the DTF, and we can make a decision. And if it's something we see valuable, we definitely do get that funded. And then I usually track the progress on that to completion, and kind of work together on getting your project to where it needs to be. Um, Lack of transparency to the DAO with projects funded or individuals actively receiving funds. Um, I kind of disagree with this one. I think that the transparency, there was a lack of transparency, but if you go to the grants dashboard on Notion, it has every project that's ever been funded by the DAO, and how much those individuals got, and what the status of that project was at the end. So I think that is something that we've worked on, and there is information available. But maybe I don't know if he's meaning more specifically to specific aspects. But we could, if there is a lack of transparency, you guys see there, we could definitely work on that. Lack of outreach leading to disparity in applicant type. Um, I'm not really sure what that one's trying to get at there. Lack of outreach leading to disparity in applicant type.
Maybe like a lack of awareness about the program.
Maybe.
So
Um,
only certain member types are aware of it, maybe.
yeah, I mean, one thing I've suggested as a potential solution to this is maybe we integrate. The DTF server is its own siloed server, and since I took over, we kind of stopped using some of those channels because it's handled by Notion. So really, there's only maybe two or three channels in that server that are being used, and so I feel like even if two of them are locked channels or whatever, we could probably think about moving some of those channels into the main Aavegotchi server, even if it's the just the grants and bounties channel. That could be just one line of communication we could have in the main server regarding new bounties being posted or the status of grants. Of course, if we have DWork integration, all of your roles, we could assign new roles in the DAO, or DWork or
Mhm.
Wonderverse. We could assign new roles and get a full Discord integration, and that would kind of solve the problem, because you could literally put a notification on your phone for when new grants come up, and you'll be notified when a new grant is up available or a new bounty is available. And you'll have a line of communication there. So that could be addressed pretty easily, I think. So now we have some opportunities. This is opportunities for the DTF. Set funding standards for community contributors and guilds seeking funding support. There's currently a risk for disparities in funding and lack of transparency. Yeah, I think there needs to be. I agree with this. There needs to be some sort of a standard for funding um, for community contributors and guild seeking funding. Currently, it's more of a one-on-one basis. So I've had a meeting with Hardcore, No Future, Zombie Shepherd. We've discussed what they feel would be reasonable, and they've all agreed to very reasonable amounts, and those amounts are usually for a 12-week period. And then usually at the 12-week period, we'll have a meeting, we'll have a review, and then if the bounty size or the grant size needs to be adjusted at that point, we make that adjustment. So more efficient capital use, which may help fund the DTF budget itself. I think this is kind of saying like a return on capital, maybe, to actually deploy capital and get a return on capital. Um, yeah, I think that's something we can definitely think about, moving forward. Currently, the projects we've submitted have been more like community contributions, I would say, more than some sort of a like a financial return. But we could also start thinking about, and I know I've been talking to folks like the Gachi Farmi, who are actually working on some very large initiatives that could really be a source of capital for the DAO. So there are actually some things in the works that could potentially be really good sources of revenue for the DAO. Improved use of Gotchiverse DAO assets versus Ghost alone. I think he's referring to the DAO parcels and the fake gotchis. I think those will be used for those will be used as a community rewards for contributors, and so that is something we can think about using other gotchi assets. Paying in whether it's land or wearables, or if you did something really big, maybe some gotchis or something like that. That could be interesting. And so maybe there could be some treasury management there with holding out other types of assets. Uh, Improve general DAO infrastructure, may be able to absorb the duties of the DTF and provide the necessary accountability and framework for its success. Yeah, I definitely think some of these tools that we want to implement, like Wonderverse, would definitely help with that big time. Some of these things that are, I guess, threats or perceived to be circular funding among friends or special interests. Currently, 4 GMI members on payroll. Currently, community is very large with other contributors who may not be aware of funding due to lack of outreach or penetration of current content. Lack of standardization in funding project type may lead to overexpense and disparity in funds allotted. This applies to arcade type games and guild requesting funding support. Um, Inadequate compensation for the time required to accomplish and account for the complexity of their role and mitigate the weaknesses and threats mentioned. Burnout of contributors. These are just some things to think about. I think there's some things here I don't really necessarily agree with. I think for the most part, literally everybody who has asked for a grant or funding of any type has asked for less than what they would be able to make doing that role, in Web 2 or whatever equivalent type of work they would be doing. They've asked for way less. I'll just say that straight up. Like, I've actually had to have conversations with Gachi Gang members being like, are you sure? Like, this seems like quite a small amount for the amount of work you're about to do here, and I would actually kind of argue and say the Gachi Gang overall has been pretty reasonable with
Mm-hmm.
pretty much every funding request I've got has been reasonable, more than reasonable. So I think when people
Been
are
a few
requesting,
outliers, but yeah, in general, they've been pretty good from what I've seen.
yeah, I think over this last year there were maybe three, just that I can think of. There may be about three out of all of the grants that we had that were kind of like, well, you're asking for an unreasonable amount. Like I think there were three rejections this last year, maybe two from me, but other than that, overall pretty good. I think there should be some awareness, like with projects coming to me, and I do my best to kind of vet projects for what they're trying to deliver versus what they're trying to ask. Um, so I wouldn't say that's an issue at the moment, but it has the potential to become an issue, as we grow as a DAO and as we get more requests, more contributors. There's a potential for this to happen. Um, yeah, and some of the other ones with the 4 GMI members on payroll, I think there should be opportunities in the future for positions to be applied for and maybe even challenged. But I think in this situation currently, like for example, for live streaming the events or making the mirror boards or maintaining the RSS feed, I kind of wanted people who are really well trusted in the community. I didn't want to invite some rando to come in and start streaming our events or making our mirror boards, because we want to make sure that the content that we're making is relevant and like curated based on our community. Um, Like No Future does a really good job of um, creating clips, and Hardcore does a good job of putting together all the meeting notes and making them really interactive with the mirror board. Zombie Shepherd does a good job with the RSS feeds. Shout out to all those guys, man, because like they're doing this for um, I think a pretty reasonable amount, and they're delivering on it consistently every week. So I'd rather have that than at this point. But I also see the need for maybe in the future to have, when we have positions open, to have maybe there's an application window for 2 weeks, and then we pick up, maybe there's a vote that we could do. Like you could do this on Wonderverse where you could actually have people vote on who you want to take that bounty. So the DAO could vote, okay, I want No Future to take this bounty because there's 5 applicants and we want him to do it. Like that could be one way of doing it. But we could discuss different ways of assigning bounties and allocating them to individuals. And, I'd love to see one day to have a pool of streamers, to have a pool of DAO contributors that we could go to and get different people coming up and contributing. Like that'd be awesome. I think we'll get there eventually. But yeah, this was a great thread by Dr. Wagme. Great that he was able to outline all the kind of just the overall view of what the DTF is, where it's at. And I think something we could consider, I am the DPM and I'm enjoying this position. I will happily continue to do this position if you guys are, satisfied with this work. An alternative could be if the DAO Foundation's being formed, maybe instead of the DTF, we have a DAO project committee. And, instead of the DTF, we would have a committee that would be responsible for collectively vetting grants. I think one of the things that wasn't outlined here was the lack of feedback on many of these grants. I kind of look at it on my own. I kind of review it, and then I pass it off. Usually, talk to Dr. Wagme, and then there's usually just one other person in the DTF that's able to look at it, and then I think there's a voting process that happens, and then the action's taken. So that's kind of the process right now. What I would like to see is someone comes to me with the grant. I look at the grant. That's the initial vetting process. I look at it. It's reasonable. It gets passed off to a review committee who then is able to look at it a little bit more objectively, whether it's smart contract work, whether it's creative work. It would be beneficial to have these people in positions that would have a certain skill set. They would be able to look at this and say, this is the smart contract work for this grant. It looks like it's a lot more than what this person's asking. Or this person's asking a lot for just doing this, like writing a little script. They're asking for a lot of money for this. And to have a little bit more oversight over the applications, I think would be probably beneficial to the process and would probably address some of these points here that are being made. So alternatively, I think I think alternatively that could be something we could consider, is if we want a DAO project committee. I'd be happy to lead that committee, as project manager, and we would request funding. Well, this would be the funding that would be requested, but I think it'd be either or. I don't think you would have two. I don't think you'd have the DTF and the project management committee. You would just have one or the other. But I think the lack of kind of scrutiny or feedback on grants, aside from myself, like one person, I think that there should be a few other eyeballs that get to see these proposals and maybe do some further vetting, and that would actually address a lot of these points here, I think, because right now it's one person managing these things, and I don't mind being the sole point of accountability, but we are a DAO, so we should try and approach our like any sort of management should be approached by a few eyeballs, I think. in a more decentralized kind of way. Um, but yeah, that's just my take on it.
So currently the DTF members are it's there's not any other more formal review. I remember there was for a while. Did that just has it not been like that for a period of time recently?
Yeah, I mean, typically the two people I deal with are Dr. Wagme and Deuce Hearts.
Mhm.
I haven't met any of the other DTF members. Um, you know, during my tenure, so far, 12 weeks, I've only interacted with Dr. Wagme and Deuce Hearts. But that being said, they've done a great job, and I don't want to. Oh, and Michael F. also. Yeah, I've actually communicated with you as well. And so shout out to those guys, man. I don't want to be like hating on the DTF or being like these guys aren't, delivering or anything like that. It's just I wish we could have a little bit more feedback and maybe from people who are specialized in a specific role. You know what I mean? Like a smart contract review or maybe a technical review or a creative review, some sort of a process where people can look at this objectively beyond just the DPM and say, well, there's some things you're kind of overlooking here. I don't mind criticism. Like I think these grants should be uh, looked at, especially the larger ones, should be looked at carefully. And we're gonna get. I mean, you guys watch over this next year. We're gonna see some probably pretty large grants being requested because um, we're kind of in build mode here, and people are seeing that, or people are starting to see that if we don't utilize our treasury in a responsible way, then the demand is always going to be business as usual, right? Let's just give it out then. Let's just give it out for rarity farming because we're not using the treasury. That's always the argument. We're not using the treasury, so we need to just give it out. And I think if we do a good enough job of actually utilizing the treasury, people start considering the value that's being generated through these funds over a consistent reward and saying, well, we could do another rarity farming, but this guy has a really good idea, and it might cost a decent amount of ghost. Maybe as a DAO, we might want to fund that initiative and create some revenue for the DAO and provide some longevity for rarity farming season, right? Um, Actually, Action, we'll talk about rarity farming season here in a sec, but those were just my thoughts. I'm gonna jump into the comments here and just read some of these. Dr. Wagme, SWOTs almost always have multiple inputs from various stakeholders. Please consider adding to it in the thread. Mikey J, so the DTF be a review committee, but still the funds be dispersed directly by the treasury signers. That way, we don't have to ask our DTF members to take on the risk of managing funds.
Because right now, one of the sticking points with several of the members was because they are dispersing funds, they do need to be KYC'd for AML purposes. So, I think what Mikey's saying is that the DTF could be anons, in that they're well-known community members, but they're not doxed, and they are able to review things and give recommendations. But the treasury, in terms of the 9 directors, maybe would be the ones actually distributing the funds. That could be one way to do it. If we couldn't get them to be the same, one and the same, basically a DTF that is all KYC'd and is able to move funds without any issues, and they have the skill set, that would be ideal. But if we couldn't find that, maybe this could be an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have the treasury. When Mikey J is talking about the treasury signers, is he referring to the DAO Foundation or the DTF treasury signers? The DAO
I think he's
Foundation.
referring to the Cayman Foundation. So that there'll be the 9 signers for that.
Yeah, and I think that seems like it kind of makes sense to me. With the treasury being the main pool and the Aavegotchi DAO foundation now is going to be a legitimate foundation that's able to disperse funds with AML compliant individuals. The DTF maybe doesn't need to manage the treasury directly, but would rather uh, be the uh, be the entry point for funding.
Yeah, I agree. Though the DTF would need a budget and probably a separate disbursement wallet would be easy to do with Parcel.
Yeah,
And
Parcel's
whether
really
or
easy
not
to
we would
use.
need all 9 signers is also a question. Maybe we don't need all 9 of them, but basically we have 9 signers that are KYC'd and can move large amounts of funds. Whether or not the DTF needs all 9 of them is a question, but uh, they will be part of the DAO. Now we haven't specifically mentioned that in the running and the election for this, so this could be seen as an additional responsibility for these people, but that's probably you would probably still want to have some sort of working budget for them to review and or not review but at least sign and manage the multi-sig.
Yeah.
So yeah, I that's an interesting idea, Mikey. We if we couldn't find the talent uh, that's willing to docs and be a signer, then we could potentially do it this way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or does could the DPM just be the one dispersing the funds? We don't even need a multi-sig, really, right?
Yeah, I could. I mean, I don't mind dispersing the funds. That's totally fine.
That makes it even easier. We don't even it's not like it's really large amounts that are sitting in a wallet. It's 50 100K of Ghost,
Yeah.
and you're doxed. So
Yeah.
the only thing we'd be worried about is your wallet being hacked,
I use a hardware
or
wallet for everything though.
yeah, and or lost.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We could do still do a multi-sig. I just have maybe one other person on it or something.
Hmm.
If that's a concern. We just need two signatures for everything. That's fine.
Yeah. You could do also a multi-sig with yourself, where you could have one of 2 signers. They're
Oh
both.
yeah, like a vault. I have one of those as well. Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah.
two hardware wallets connected to or you can even have one hardware wallet and one whatever. But you would have two signatures for every transaction.
Well, you just need one signature. So if you lost one, you'd still have the other
Oh
one.
right,
That
right.
you could do, this is good practice for anyone. If you have lots of funds and you can create a multi-sig for yourself and have like 3 wallets as signers, but you only need one wallet to be a signer. If you're if you're not worried about being hacked, this is more if you're worried about losing your assets, like losing your wallet, then you have backups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how all these pieces work together. Dr. Wagme, tangential conversation is DPM's role was slated for 12 weeks. So that is, yeah. So I'm like this meeting is on the house here, guys. Apparently my term ended on the 28th. So we have to figure out exactly how the DAO wants the DPM role to be considered. Dr. Wagme is saying he's suggesting that it be a DAO election and not be a DTF funding thing. Um, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but we need to figure out a way forward, right? Yeah, exactly. DAO shut down.
We need that arena.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm cool for an election or whatever you guys want to do. But in my opinion, if the DAO project manager is going to be managing projects, I'm having trouble understanding like where the DTF fits in with that because the last 12 weeks, um, I've been kind of doing everything on my own for the most part. I just kick over a grant to the DTF when a proposal is you know, reasonably vetted by myself. They have a look at it, and then they just pass it. So there's been no feedback or anything, but I'd like to see basically all these changes that are suggested in the DTF review to be part of this. Um, and whether that DAO DPM role is elected or what, I think we need to figure out a way forward. I can definitely have a
Yeah.
conversation with the DTF themselves, or I guess Dr. Wagme and the one other person, and or whoever is in the DTF, and try and figure out a way forward with that. But I
So,
actually agree. KYC DPM can just disperse the funds.
yeah, that seems like the easiest way. And then, because we don't want to lose potential talent in the DAO just because they need to be KYC to be a signer. We're definitely limiting our applicant pool, and it's been a sticking point with the DTF since the beginning anyway. So now that we have a kind of a KYC DPM, it makes sense that that role could that job could be done by the DPM in terms of dispersing funds. We don't really need the review committee to be dispersing the funds.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe the best way forward here is the DTF. We can think about the DTF members that might want to be uh, part of the DTF to provide some relevant and transparent inputs on specific grants, especially the larger ones. I think it's definitely a good idea to have some extra eyeballs on them, and then maybe we could figure out some way to get you know a DPM wallet set up. And then also I'll talk with the DTF, and we can put together a DAO proposal for a longer tenure and a more fixed position for DTF or DPM position. Dr. Wagme, final recommendation would be 100 ghost a month for DTF members. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Okay, so I see. Sorry, I'm not gonna get stuck on this for too long here. So that was kind of the summary of the DTF review and new budget request. If you do have any other comments on this, please post in the chat there, the forum chat. Brills, I see Hefe regarding AGEP 51. I agree with First Aavegotchi, and I think re-election is the best course of action. Top vote getter, Yannick 17%, pulled out before the election concluded. Redistributing those votes could change the whole ballot. Also, millions of votes going to candidates that never applied publicly via the DAO entity signaling thread. Mark saying, really annoying
We're
waste of
okay with
time.
either way. We just want to make sure that this is the will of the DAO. That
Okay, I see your vote there.
yeah.
Do we need to do a do-over of Agate 51 now that Yannick has pulled out? So I see 25 yeses and 4 nos so far. Gotchi 15, that's a good point. Better redo it now as opposed to dissent later. Umami, there's also the consideration on the VLT DAO side that there needs to be a course of action on how they will mirror the vote.
I thought they didn't they? Because it's a weighted vote, right? They were able to weight it accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey J says, what would the process have been if someone resigned a few months from now? That process should be the same now. There would, so the other option would be we could basically the top 8 would stay the same that because they won, and then there would be a runoff for one spot because that's what probably would happen if someone resigned a few months from now. So basically, we would take the first 8, and then no, the 9th would be the runoff. But Mark has a good point. The whole I mean, Yannick was number 1. There was a lot of voting power on the line there. So the results could be significantly different, but is it worth doing a whole do-over? We'll make a little vote here, see what you guys think. So if we do a do-over, should it be for all 9 spots or just the last spot?
Oh, all 9 is gaining traction. I would have thought just the last. But...
The static fireball is that one doesn't count, guys. You got to go the emoji fireball. No, we're not adding them together.
Okay, all right, that was good. All right. Okay, a lot of people are just saying redo the whole damn thing. Well, Yannick had 3.3 million Ghost VP on him, so had he not been in the running, could have led to a very different result. Zanzi. Mikey J. So if I'd resigned a month from now, we'd be voting on just one spot, or a few months from now, where's the line? Mark, oh man, people will be so annoyed if they win this vote and lose the next. Yeah, yeah. I think that's what we're trying to avoid, right? With the last vote, like the last one voted in.
I mean, nothing has really changed, just except Yannick has pulled out. Probably we were likely to see the same results.
I'm gonna vote the same way I voted before, personally. Minus Yannick, of course, because he's pulling out. So
my initial thought was we would just leave it as is. We don't actually really need a do-over. What's done is done. But if a large group of the DAO feels like a do-over is necessary, we're giving voice to that right now.
Yeah.
So all 9 has 28, just the last has 14. Maybe we're not going to do a sig prop. I mean, we really don't need to do a sig prop on whether or not we should do a do-over. It's like
just farming XP at that point.
Just XP farming.
Okay, like it looks like it looks like a do-over at that point.
I mean, if Mikey's point stands, because the only reason it does, I think it is a little bit different, is because we haven't actually made the multi-sig yet. Like, this was a core prop, but it hasn't actually become reality yet. So it does seem there's a little bit more wiggle room now to do like a full vote rather than a single replacement vote. But at the same time, that's just, we don't have a process for that yet. But Umami does make a good point. There were I believe there were some applicants that didn't actually make their application in the thread that we made. So that I think they signaled with your form Hefe, but they didn't actually do it a DAO
Oh,
entity signaling thread. So that, and they also got quite a few votes. They said they were going to, but they never did. I think
okay.
that was pretty annoying.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean,
Well, there's the blog has the list of those individuals. Let's see. We did say there are 5 more applicants who have indicated interest through unofficial channels. So we added them. So Mycelium, 0x, Zephi, Zeitgeist, Mick Abandoned Pants, and Umami.
mm-hmm.
So let's see. Some of these did get Umami got 1.1 million ghost, Maxi Crouton, Mycelium. So these guys, they didn't actually go through the official process. That's another, but we added them because they said they were going to.
Okay.
And they did signal to you. So that was probably also, it was kind of a loophole, but
Yeah.
we're
So
not happy about that, by the way. We made it very clear that you guys should have done that, but they were, I don't know.
right. So are we gonna be if we're gonna be redoing this? I guess everybody who is in the signaling thread would be the ones available to be included in the resubmission. I mean, I can reach out to those
Um,
other people and say, if you want to be included in this in the redo, just signal you got to signal in the thread.
so Z5 says he learned of the thread after the snapshot went up and signaled on the interest form, but does not want to be in the redo. So yeah, this is
Okay. Oh yeah, because OXC5 also you said you'd wanted to pull out in this situation also that you had been voted on. So that actually
yeah,
makes
if
two people then because
multiple people
OXC.
are pulling out, then this is not good.
Sonzi. Hmm. Okay, so I guess we need a way forward though, guys. Like we gotta either we're redoing the vote and we're putting it through, and it seems like some people are gonna be not gonna be running, or we just uh, we get that one individual to replace Yannick. That seems to be, and people are saying 100% need to do a redo. So
Yeah.
okay,
Okay, well then on the next one, we're not. I don't think we're adding new people, so we're just going to go on the ones that are actually in the DAO entity signaling thread.
yeah, yeah. So if you did signal on the tally form, please just go in the signaling thread and also make sure you're in there so you're included. That's what you guys are using, right? Then for the new one.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we're not. But we can't allow new
Okay.
applicants. If
So
you
as
signaled on
is.
the candy form, you can technically it's probably okay to, yeah.
I think there's
I mean,
four individuals now that were on the tally form that maybe I think might be two of them that are not on that signaling thread. One of them who's not going to be included anyway. So I'll reach out to the individual and say, if you're actually interested, please do get your name on there. But
As far as clear rules on what happens if someone resigns, that's going to be in the Constitution, which is currently being drafted. So we don't have that Constitution yet, and that's why we have this issue. That is, it's in the works. And we're going to get that and be able to have the community go through it, pour through it, add comments, mark it up in a typical gotcha gang fashion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds
All right.
like
Yeah.
we are opting for redo.
Yeah. Sounds like it. And so we'll do the redo. We'll get another proposal through the through Snapshot.
Yep.
And I'll after this call, Dan, I'll go through. I'll just confirm uh, the tally stuff with you, and we'll just leave it at where it's at, and then we'll. I don't think there's gonna be anybody new. I think actually aside from the pullouts now, the individuals you have in the signaling form are gonna be the ones that are the only
Hmm.
ones that are gonna be included, basically. So
So
I'll just
none of the
confirm that with
five.
you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll confirm that with you after the call. Um, but yeah, okay. So that's the decision we're going forward with. I'm gonna move on quickly through some of these other last points that we wanted to hit on here. Um, Pawn, just so you guys know, Pawn loans are active on Pawn right now. You can do P2P loans. There have been, I think, 4 loans now that have been issued. One was for 50K DAI that actually went through. Somebody was able to put up their gotchis and get a pretty big loan on them. So it's really cool that the peer-to-peer aspect of Pawn is being used. There was a discussion amongst the Pawn team about putting through a proposal, a request to the DAO for a DAO backed funding for loans. And I mean, I'm personally not an advocate of it, but I'm kind of curious to know what you guys would think, what role the DAO would play in a lending market if this proposal was to pass. Um, I think there would have to be some guidelines that are put up. I know Dr. Wagme actually mentioned some guidelines. So there there could be a way to set this up where the DAO would be able to provide loans, and it would provide the DAO with I believe it worked out to be a 16% yearly APY. So not a huge return, but still a return for the DAO on the Ghost if the if the funds were actually utilized over the P2P. And I mean, yeah, let's talk about Tamagotchi. You're bringing up a point to discuss is, do we want the DAO being involved in borrowing and lending? Because what's going to happen is the DAO will most likely end up at some point in the future owning someone's assets
Hmm.
when they couldn't repay the loan. So what happens with the asset? Like, what does the DAO do with the asset? And then what could be the potential? Uh, I don't know. What could be some potential circumstances with community members forfeiting their assets to the DAO?
Do we have a knowledge on how much liquidity is currently there?
What do you mean? Like how much for the for the loan specifically, or like peer to peer lending on Pawn?
On pawn, I guess. Is like someone has to deposit Ghost for someone to borrow, right? That's how it works. So what we're asking here is that the DAO will basically put up 100K of Ghost, and then it will lend that out to people who will put down their gotchis as collaterals.
Yeah, so currently the peer-to-peer thing on Pawn is you basically put up your collateral on their marketplace saying, I'm requesting, let's say, 500 Ghost for this gotchi I'm putting up, and I'm gonna do this for, you know, there's a specific APY, and then the lender is the one who goes shopping, and they go through
Oh.
the marketplace and say, hey, this guy's collateral is pretty sweet. I wouldn't mind
Hmm.
owning that. So basically the bet that the lender is making is that you will not pay back the in the worst case scenario that you will not pay back the loan, and the lender will get your asset as a at a discounted price because they now own your asset, um, for the loan that they gave out to you. So they wouldn't get their money back, but they would now own your asset. And so
Okay,
with the
so the DAO would be the one shopping for collaterals, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, this would be a so because this is a manual process for peer-to-peer lending, it would be a decent amount of work also for the DAO, and the pawn team's been made aware of this. So before they get their proposal through, I think they were discussing of automating through some modules and having fixed rates that the DAO would be, uh, the fixed amounts and rates that the DAO would be making these agreements on. So they're trying to automate this process. I haven't really heard back from them how they were able to figure this out, but the process would be automated, the amounts would be fixed, and the APY would also be fixed. But what would happen is in the scenario where the borrower would not pay back the loan, the DAO would end up owning the player's assets. There is a scenario here I thought of that would not be favorable for the DAO, and that would be a kind of shorting scenario where you would lend your assets to the DAO, you would take the ghost, and then you would basically dump the ghost, and then you're betting basically on a lower ghost price by using the DAO funds to short its own token, which would not be good. Um, Maybe 100K wouldn't have a huge impact. Maybe it would. I'm not really sure. But that is a scenario that could potentially happen if the DAO is going to be doing this. Someone can do this peer to peer as well, but also this is the DAO lending its own funds out, um, only for its own token to be yeah. Yannick, exactly. I agree with Yannick. That's exactly what I'm thinking about right now because this is like, I don't know, man. I don't agree. I don't agree with this, but this is, of course, we're DAO, so we have to talk about all this stuff. But you know,
It sounds like even like there's even more smart contract risk with the. It sounds like this thing the module they're trying to automate, that would also have to be a smart contract, right? So we need
yeah,
to review that as well, in
yeah.
addition to the pawn smart contract risk.
I mean, otherwise,
And
if there's no smart contract, it's a very manual process. You literally need someone like,
yeah,
you'd have to pay like someone to do it, and like manage it for the DAO. So,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of this. It seems like someone mentioned maybe using die for it instead of ghost. It could be maybe. I mean, it's
yeah.
really the same. It's the same DAO treasury. It seems very speculative and quite a bit of smart contract risk, and there's the payoff really isn't that high. It's 4% interest.
Yeah, yeah. However, they are going to be putting a proposal out there. I think the last one for them wasn't, they weren't able to post it because they didn't have a gotchi, or it got removed because they didn't have a gotchi associated. But if they do get that up there, then that'll be up there, and we can have another discussion around it. But those are my thoughts, and yeah,
Yeah, that seems like a perfect thing for community members to take opportunity on. If they think that the risk is worth it, then they should definitely try it out. We don't really have an official partnership. Like they integrated Aavegotchi, which is cool, and they did the work. But it's not something we're like supporting super strongly. So Pixelcraft is not putting up our assets for it. It's a very community grassroots kind of thing happening. I mean, I think it's cool.
I've had some cool
It's just
suggestions to the pawn team. I had a discussion with them a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned the Spirit Force collateral in the gotchi, the A token, and they thought that was
mhm.
really interesting. So maybe if they have an integration on their platform to actually show the 8 token collateral as actual collateral, that might be an interesting use case for peer to peer lending. I have 100 die or 200 die collateral in my gotchi, so the minimum collateral value is 200 die plus whatever value they want to assign to the gotchi. Could be interesting. Um, there's there's some interesting things we could do with the gotchi itself and still be peer to peer, and I agree with Zanzi as well. I think this is really cool for a peer-to-peer utility for gotchis. And I also did a podcast episode on with Pawn with the founder. So if you guys want to listen to that on the crypto portal, my podcast kind of goes through everything that Pawn does there. They have many different use cases. So all right, so that's kind of the Pawn discussion there. All right, so we will quickly run through this. Burning locked spillover. I guess this is a conversation happening in the DAO forum right now. The problem here highlighted, we do not know what to do with the backspill. Unreleased spillage stored in the spillage wallet, but we do know there is too much Alchemica for our current group size and game state. And so this person is saying, my proposal is to change the lock spillover policy to one of the following options. Option 1, burn all currently locked spillover. Burn all spillover going forward unless an event is happening, or the DAO votes to turn spillover back on. Option 2, the same as option 1, but exclude spillover that has come from reservoirs. The reason for doing this is that the economy has been inflating too much and could not handle this amount of tokens being distributed. Either option is okay. The argument for option 2 would be that the reservoir spillover has come from someone's land that they paid for. Personally, I think option 1 is better, though, as with the originally designated spillover, you were never going to be able to collect any of that spillover. So basically they're saying because you weren't going to collect the spillover anyway, that burning it would avoid the future headache of how to distribute it. That's what they're saying, I guess. Because we don't have a use for it, or we don't know how to, we don't want to deal with how to distribute it later, we'll just burn it right now. But what is this trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve here? What's the goal? Is the goal to reduce the supply? I don't really know, because if the goal is to change the price, I don't think this is going to accomplish that. I don't think we should be trying to mess around with changing Alchemica price. But what's this trying to achieve? Let's keep doing things until number go up. Yes.
I think the intention here seems to be the worry that one day it'll all be unlocked suddenly and that it would be a massive inflation event. So the potential of that is weighing down on the author.
Yeah, I mean, I have full faith in you guys at Pixelcraft implementing at some point some really large sinks for Alchemica, and I think the rest of the community, a lot of the community, is thinking, well, we're still early in game development, like in development.
Yeah.
So once we actually have a fully mapped out game with like fully completed game loops, I guess the hope there is that there would be deep enough Alchemica sinks in the game to actually maybe do quite the opposite. Maybe we'll need more Alchemica because there's a shortage. That would be kind of optimal use case for this locked up supply. Is if there is such a large requirement of Alchemica for certain sinks in the game, we might want to think about unlocking some of this spillover to actually, be able to build the community structure, or be able to repair the Citadel walls, or who knows? I don't know what you guys are thinking of Pixelcraft, like on the back end, behind the scenes, but I'd imagine there'd be some pretty big use cases for Alchemica, after great battles and stuff like that. So maybe we should be looking at that. In my opinion, the spillover is an opportunity to draw on it when we need it as a community for whatever.
Yeah, there's like literally unlimited ways to. Once we have gameplay and more things are live, there's literally unlimited syncs that we can bring. We're not really worried about the syncs. It's just it takes time to bring them on, right? To make cool stuff that people want to spend their alchemica on. Let that sink in.
Yeah. I don't think this is anything urgent that we need to act on. And, in my opinion, um, maybe the author has some concerns, but I think so long as it's locked, it's not really affecting us in any way right now. You know, it's locked. It's not doing anything. I'm going to move on to designate all backspill as district funds for municipal allocation auctions. This is a kind of ties in with what we just discussed. Designate all backspill, so spillover, I think, as district funds for municipal auctions. Opportunity. We do know that we have district DAOs and that we will be customizing our districts. So that was like the community structures that was just kind of in the lamp posts and whatnot we've discussed. The backspill is the perfect mechanism to use to create an isolated market for the districts to compete against each other. Okay, interesting. Spillage will become, in essence, play money for our district DAO microgovernments, a game within a game, a macroeconomy in a bubble. Interesting. Benefits, community pride, player engagement, realm beautification, and yes, the glitter gets burned after each auction, so there's no inflation, just an elegant way to start up the local governments. Suggested enhancement, the bids are in a form of 1x, 2x, and 3x. You are making an offer to pay a multiple of the floor price. Use the recipes to make various sets of items. Use recipes to make various sets of items favor certain alchemica, as each district is going to trend towards a different quantity and distribution of spilled alchemica. Their budgets should vary wildly and will get a spirited and fun competition that brings the community together. I think differentiation between districts could be really interesting, and even the micro governments could be interesting as well. Like we've talked about district DAOs before, and having individual DAOs govern, their alchemica allotments for like that community, for that subdivision. What do y'all think about this idea here about making creating municipal auctions for alchemica lots and then distributing that out to the districts for having individual initiatives between each district? Coder Dan, actually, regarding district DAOs, are there any kind of plans in the works on, any thoughts on your guys' behalf regarding district DAOs? Maybe at what point during development you could see district DAOs becoming a thing? Is this something you see happening in this current phase of the DAO? Or maybe once the foundation's formed, or maybe later once we're in metamorphosis? Like, at what point do you see the districts gaining enough legitimacy to support something like this?
I think it's a little bit separate from like the actual Aavegotchi DAO evolution. It's more of just the Gotchiverse roadmap. So right now we are doing the traits arena, and that's going to be, obviously it's a huge release. Then the next major one will be Gotchiverse Developer SDK. That's going to be kind of a long-term thing that we work on in phases, and Gotchi Lodge, guild channeling, and estates. So it's not currently on the roadmap, although it was mentioned. So definitely something we'd want to do, but we need to just kind of decide on what exact features each district would have and how we want to do governance for each district. And I do remember you guys had had spun off kind of a working group for ideas about the district DAOs. I'm very curious to see if there's any stuff that's coming from that recently. But I mean, yeah, we're down to do it. It's just arena and gameplay has kind of taken priority because that's what everyone wants, and that's what's really going to drive growth more than like a district DAO.
I mean, do we ever? That's all we've been talking about for the last 6
Yeah.
months. Is
So we're like,
PvP.
well, we gotta trying to prioritize things a little bit, make sure that our dev effort is spent on what you guys really want.
Yeah, we need to let out some of this bottled up aggression. It needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Arena is a good place for it. Yeah, yeah, I kind of agree with Dr. Wagme's sentiment for now. You know, let's sit on this one. This was a good conversation. Let's sit on this. Let's think about it. I think there's some really interesting ways we could implement the Alchemica spillover without maybe burning it, or maybe burning it as part of a gamified mechanism. I don't know. It could be interesting, but we should think about this carefully, and maybe we can have a follow-up conversation about it. So I'll just finish off quickly saying the DAO mission and vision. I was hoping we'd have something together by now. Unfortunately, I was a little bit behind with the move and a few activities last couple days. But next weekend, I'll definitely have something together for that. In the meantime, we do have a the DAO mission and vision development submissions, and so I'll share these submissions with you guys. Please have a look. It might give you some ideas around this discussion. There's also a working group, so if you do want to be part of the working group, I think we're pretty much at this point. You know, I don't think we're gonna get any new members, but if you want to be part of that, then feel free to DM me and I'll get you in there. Zanzi, hey, since we are doing redoing the election, would it be alright if I had like 30 seconds on stage to signal my interest before this call ends? Yeah, absolutely. Let me get you up here. Hey,
GM,
Zanzi.
GM.
GM.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, so my name's Zonzi. I'm on the I sit in a unique spot at Polygon in between the DeFi and marketing teams. I got into crypto almost 2 years ago, and Aavegotchi is one of the first NFT projects I got into. Super passionate about it. Love it here. And yeah, I'm mainly interested in getting on the foundation because I think it would look really great on my resume since I'm really passionate about this industry. I like really hope to continue working in this space. So I really appreciate everybody's consideration. Thank you.
There we go. Zonzi for president. Just kidding. No, awesome. That's great. I think we should have, honestly, I think we should have all candidates come up here and do a little bit like that. That would be great.
Yeah, we asked everyone last week if they wanted to. So if we're going to be doing a do-over anyway, we do have a couple minutes here if anyone wants to come up and say hi. Thanks, Zonzi. Nice to meet you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hi. Futuristic.
Hi. You guys know me, so I'm just saying hi.
That's your pitch. Hi.
Yeah, hi. I have a hardware wallet. I'm pretty dedicated. I don't really do much else in my life, so I'm ready to hold down those roles. I don't really, I have my opinions about things, but it's very clear what the signer's role is, and it's to execute what the DAO wants. So that is like, it's simple. So yeah, hi. I'm gonna step off now.
Nice. Anybody else? Anybody else want to pitch their pitch? Or just say hi? No. All right. I think we covered a lot here during this meeting today. I see Hardcore has also posted up some. He's done a nice summary of the PvP alpha that was dropped yesterday. My brain is still hurting from all that. But there's some alpha that he's able to suss out from all those things that were dropped on us yesterday, and there's a really nice concise summary on the Miro board for you. But that wraps up everything we wanted to discuss for the meeting today. I'll have I think his name was Scooter from I think it's Regen Finance. I'm gonna have to follow up on that, but we do have a presenter regarding some really cool ideas, and I'll follow up on that next week.
For the I feel like unless we don't have anything else going that week, I kind of feel like the project presentations really shouldn't be during our core DAO call that we only have once a week. Does anyone else have that sense?
You're right. I think it's maybe more appropriate for the hangout to have those come hang out with us, and you're probably right on that.
Yeah, the Gotchi space or the hangout, like the hangouts especially, would be fine, I think. Because there's that more people, people just doing their channeling, they're listening, whereas the DAO is kind of a little bit more focused.
Can be dense. Dr. Wagme, Coder Dan, any update on the DAO parcels?
Yes, I took a look at the doc, and we're gonna sync and make sure all of those parcels are active in the Gotchiverse, and we'll try to get those minted for you ASAP.
Yeah, I believe he has some big plans for end of year. I know you discussed that with me, and kind of stoked for that actually. So, yeah, that'll be good. I agree with you again on the presenters. These meetings can be pretty dense, so we'll maybe I'll follow up with those guys, and if they want to present next week, we can try and get them out at the hangout. Yeah, nice. Okay, so this was a great meeting. We covered a whole bunch of stuff here. If you have something for next week that you might want to bring to attention, you can always DM myself, or Hardcore is usually pretty good with that stuff as well. For follow-up stuff, No Futuristic will be publishing clips of this meeting throughout early next week, or this coming week. And then you can also go hit up the Zombie Shepherds RSS feed for any podcast listening that you want to do regarding the DAO meetings. Maury, I'm going to read your thing here. I'll say hi here. I'm applying for the foundation and look forward to seeing how the DAO would like to vote in the rerun. Ultimately, this is the most passionate DAO out there, and I'd love to be a part of driving the DAO forward, which will inevitably involve hardships and debates, as that kind of comes with the territory of innovation. Good luck to all the candidates. Oh yeah, Anthony Shepard just got back from Miami. Very good, sir. No Futuristic. If you guys have any feedback on the clips, please DM him if you have suggestions, or one of ourselves, and we'll be, we'll try and make this process. We'll try and make these as valuable as we can for you guys. And don't forget to vote. Keep an eye out for proposals. I think we have.
We'll let you guys know when the redo is up.
Yeah. Currently, nothing outstanding, so you're good. Just keep an eye out. And I also have a Substack that I do usually every Wednesday or Thursday. I'll give you just an update on anything outstanding, and then just a summary of last week's DAO meeting, and sometimes anything else that we're more forward-looking as well. I'll include in there. All right, that wraps up our meeting. Coder Dan, do you have any last any last points?
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know we're going to be putting out a more official kind of code of conduct here in the Discord next week, and there will be some new rules as far as enforcing the idea of no personal attacks. Didn't think that's really something we would have to enforce with timeouts and eventually bans, but we've gotten to this point. So we're going to be putting out some official rules on that, and kind of a timeline for how that will be, what kind of actions will be taken. And so just hope that everyone can keep things civil here in the bear market. I know, times can be tough for people in a bear market. but it's no excuse to take that out on fellow community members or calling them names or anything like that. So come next week, there will be more enforcement happening on that kind of thing. And we'll be putting out an official announcement for that. So definitely stay tuned for that in the announcements channel.
Yeah, and one last thing for me. I just noticed, unfortunately, we did not get to cover Gotchi Board Alchemica competition, but please provide your input in this thread here by Mark, and we'll be sure to cover it next weekend. So my apologies for that. I said we would cover that today, and we didn't get to it, but be sure to just have a read on that, and we'll definitely touch on that next weekend. So my apologies. But other than that, hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, friends.
No Future and I, we've been doing Gotchi Space on Wednesday with Golden Cross. So if you guys want to come out to that, we usually have guest speakers on, and the last couple have been really great. So yeah, come hang out with us on Wednesday, and if not, we'll see you next weekend.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Gotcha gang out.
Gotcha gang. Peace.